So this is kind of the pre-meeting, letting people in.
Welcome, everybody. We always like to hear about where you're zooming in from. So if you're in Davis, tell us what neighborhood you're zooming in from, and also what kind of cars you have at home. Or if you don't have an EV and you are EV curious, let us know what you are interested in. We're still waiting for one of our speakers, so we'll get started in just a minute or two. Richard, can you check on our other speaker just to double check you haven't had a message from him?
I will do that.
I'm Chris Granger with Cool Davis. The DEVA, the Davis Electric Vehicle Association, is a working group under the Cool Davis Coalition, and it's also a subsidiary of Assoc EV. And we partner, Cool Davis partners with DEVA to do a lot of the electric vehicle education in our community. And we all partner together in the region to promote electric vehicles throughout the region and electric vehicle charging. So if you have friends or family that are interested in belonging or getting more information about electric vehicles, you can always point them at DEVA or at Assoc EV to join and participate in their events and programs. So Richard, how are we doing?
I'm trying to find out if I've got a telephone number for Robert. He told me he was going to be there, but
we will get started in just a minute.
We get our speakers, either that or.
So I don't see anybody's names or EVs in the chat. You can go ahead and do that. It's nice to see some faces we haven't seen for a while. I wasn't here last month, so Yvonne, I don't know if you were here last month, but the last time I remember seeing you, you were zooming in from the Caribbean islands, I believe.
Yes, from Jamaica. Yeah, I don't get to get on all the time. And this is my son-in-law, Vance, and he has just purchased 2 electric vehicles.
Wow.
So I purchased the Ford Mach-E. Waited about a year for it to come in, but just recently got that one, and also the Tesla Model 3.
Awesome.
And we have a Model S in the family, and also a Chevy Volt, a 2018.
So we're trying to go all electric here.
Wow, that's great.
Well, that sort of brings up other themes in Cool Davis, you know, because all electric might start with your vehicle and end with your cooktop on your stove. Or
Yeah.
as the discussion is going in our community right now, you know, electrifying our entire homes. So there's many things to do, and all of them can be fun, save us money, and maybe even, you know, do a little bit towards saving the planet too. So.
Chris, this is Nikki Dameron. I attended my first meeting last time, and I'm going to mute myself because I'm going to be driving. But I wanted to say hello to everybody. And at the end of the last meeting, I had mentioned that I was thinking about a plug-in electric Subaru, the Crosstrek, and everybody thought I should consider an electric vehicle, like the pure electric vehicle. So I wanted to tell you that I listened to what you had to say, and I think you're right, that I should go all electric. And so now I'm looking at the Solterra, the Subaru Solterra, which just opened up again for production 2 days ago. So hopefully they're really going to sell them again. So, and then that said, I'm going to just mute myself and go back to driving. So
thanks, Nikki. We're glad you could join us.
Thanks so much.
It's always great to hear back about how advice is helping you and other people with decisions. So that's what we're here for.
Yes, it was very helpful, and I appreciate it. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, you know, Richard, can you send me the email address, you know, just CC me on one of your messages to the other speaker, and I'll watch my email while you're leading the rest of the the
Yeah.
presentations
another-
tonight.
Another minute here, and I will forward that on to you. and everybody's looking at it.
So usually at the beginning of our DEVA meetings, we often will do what we call hot topics or issues or items of interest that people might be interested in. And so I guess maybe this might be a great time to take any of those. So if you have a particular item of interest that you have a question about, or some quick bit of information that you think the group might be interested in, can you just drop it in the chat and then I'll call on you individually? Or you could raise your hand. That'd be another way to take these.
So Chris, I just sent him another note. So hopefully he logs in here. And we can find out more. Otherwise, we're kind of stuck without him there.
I did want to just quickly introduce, and maybe you guys can turn your cameras on briefly. Some of our leadership team for DEVA. Katrina Sutton is with us tonight. And give a wave. There's Katrina. And Ash.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry for being late.
It's no problem. We're glad
Actually,
you could join us.
Back in town for the first time in 6 weeks. So
and we're always looking for new members to the leadership team. There's a few more who are not here with us this evening, but we would really love to have more people involved in helping with our pop-ups on Saturdays and upcoming electric vehicle planning. So if you're interested in joining us, joining the leadership team, they meet on the 4th Monday of the month at from 5:30 to 6:30 for planning meetings. And that's where they plan this meeting. And they also do planning of other events. And some of those are just to have fun too. Like we're talking about some field trips coming up, just to interesting things. I see that Yvonne put in the chat that they're having an electronic upgrade glitching with their 2016 Model S and dealing with a high cost of the repair estimate. So I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
Well, it's frustrating because the screen will sometimes go blank. It will take a long time to, turn on. And this we started noticing after the last upgrade, required upgrade. And as I think they're explaining to us that over time with all the upgrades, it begins to overload,
Well, I mean, does it take up space on the memory card? Is that the whole principle with the electric vehicles? Is it like does it work like an iPhone where you start adding information to it and it starts filling up the memory? Because that's sorry, go ahead.
it's kind of the same philosophy as like what you do with your regular home computer. So as you know, the same computer you have now is not the same that you had 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a year ago sometimes. So the development on the technology side or the hardware itself is progressing almost as fast as the the computer world, because of the fact that you're adding more features like the autonomous driving and all the new sensors and safety and things. So that kind of overwhelms the system where they have to do more upgrades. But yeah, after a certain point in time, that memory or that placeholder on that hardware becomes less. And yeah, that's the frustrating part, is now we're at the point where there's more technology, there's more safety features, there's more creature comforts on the vehicle that stress that hardware more, but we're at that point now where they either have to do that physical upgrade themselves or look at some other options there.
Yeah, that's the frustrating point. Who should pay for this? Because we have to take the upgrades. Otherwise, we lose drivability, is our understanding. I mean, it isn't even a question, yes, do we want the upgrade or no? Just comes and tells us upgrade is coming. and do it. And so the question we have is, should we really have to pay for, this cost? I mean, it's like, as I said, by the time you 1,700 and something, by the time you finish, it's $1,900. That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a challenging part. I mean, right now it's sort of a question of, is it warranty related, or is it, within their kind of time frame of support? So generally, most automotive companies are supposed to support their vehicle for up to 10 years. So yours is a 2016 is what I heard.
Yeah. Yes.
So technically, they're supposed to provide parts for that vehicle up until 2026. So, but on the disclaimer there is the warranty. So they may warranty certain portions of the vehicle longer than the others. Like Hyundai, they have their powertrain warranty for 10 years, but their bumper to bumper is maybe 5 years. So if anything else falls apart in the car, you only have 5 years to cover it, and that's where you might draw some difficulty in the payment part, because it does go past that initial warranty. But they should at least present you with an option that should repair your problem. So if there is a hardware upgrade, there should be something available to you, and whether or not that's covered with a warranty or such, I guess it's kind of the debate, and that might be having to do with maybe anybody else that might have that same problem, or there might be some other groups that may have some experiences similar to that. So you may look into some Tesla groups online, see if they have any shared experiences and see how they approached it, because it seems like we're going to be approaching a lot of these problems more quickly now that these cars are, entering the used car market, and they're becoming older in age, where sometimes the hardware may not be capable enough to handle some of the new system requirements that's on these vehicles now.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.
So Chris, do you want to get started? I think we've got Jeff is here.
Yes, we could. And I would just encourage anybody that if you have some other questions, we probably will have time at the end, especially any of you who are more EV curious and have some specific questions about new vehicles or anything related to electric vehicles. So we'll make time for that at the end of the meeting as well.
So just let me add to as we get started here. Remember to keep yourself on mute when the speakers are going. Use the chat if you want to ask questions. And Chris, you're going to check that chat as well, right?
Yes.
Keep me aware of what's going on. Then there's any other questions you have. Actually, you want to ask questions, you can put those in the chat as well. And let's just get right into tonight's agenda, just so you can kind of see what's going to come up. We'll start with the hot topics. We're going to do a quick recap of our National Drive Electric Week event called EVs at the Pavilion. We're going to have Jeff Flynn, who's going to talk about Unitrans and its transition to zero emission buses. Hopefully, Robert Thayer from Davis High School is going to talk us about his electric vehicle program there, which sounds like we've done quite a bit. But if nothing else, we've got our questions and answers, and that's the time. A lot of these things, if you've got questions, bring them up then. And I know I've gotten an email from Nancy, who said she wanted to hear some more about the Leaf that we can definitely add at the end. So why don't we bump right into hot topics? Does anybody have anything they've heard in the news lately they want to bring up as new information that's coming out? And if anybody's heard anything about the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the climate infrastructure bill, that'd be nice to hear about as well. So part of that is, the rebates are going to start in January. So the law kicks in January 1st. And the question of what models and how they're going to be able to get refunds and rebates for new EVs, it's still, let's put it this way, it's clear as mud, I guess I'd say. There's a lot of, and they've kind of changed the way, instead of getting a easy $7,500 tax credit, that they've divided into 2 credits, and it depends on where the components are made and where the components are sourced from as well. So anyone else have any hot topics they'd like to share of recent EV news? And don't be bashful. Here's a time if you want to turn off your mute.
The credits were confusing for us when we were buying the Mach-E because it looked more as if it would fall under the car requirements, but apparently it's considered an SUV crossover. So the credits would apply for a car that goes up to 80,000.
Right.
And you may be aware that they are attacking dealer, what's it called?
The dealer markup.
Dealer markups that run anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000. And Ford doesn't like it, and said the manufacturer, but once they sell the cars to the dealerships can make their own decisions and are.
Wow. I've heard some people actually who didn't like paying these markups actually went to the manufacturer and said, gee, I love your car, but my dealer wants to charge me $10,000. This was a couple of months ago. And the manufacturer contacted the dealer and said, you should knock that off, and we're going to make sure you don't have as many cars next time. So, but definitely that's an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't think to call the manufacturer, but we challenged them on it because the manufacturer was saying that, the Ford. But they said, nope, once the cars are sold to us, we can make the decisions.
Wow.
If you want it, take it.
And I've heard that before too. You took it, yeah. And
we negotiated.
Oh, good.
One dealership we could have gotten 4,000, but it wasn't exactly what we wanted.
Right.
So we got a $7,000 markup.
And that was one fear about the, excuse me, the rebates that dealers would see, especially in times of short supply, as a way of basically, instead of lowering the price of the car, basically you were using government money to give them a bigger profit deal. Concerning. Okay.
So, any other questions?
Okay, let's just move on to our first topic, which is going to be, Chris is going to give a little recap of the EVs at the Pavilion, which was held on September 25th. And I'm going to steal all the exciting parts. So Chris, why don't you go ahead and jump in? You want me to unshare and you can start sharing?
Sure.
Okay. Find my button. Okay.
Can everybody see those slides?
Yes.
So on September 25th, many of you were there. We had our latest National Drive Electric Week EVs at the Pavilion. This was the second time that we've had this event on a Sunday underneath the Farmers Market Pavilion in Davis, which has turned out to be a really great venue for the event. We're really glad to have Jeff Flynn here tonight from Unitrans, because he got to share with us their brand new electric buses on that lovely day. We had over 300 attendees and about 142 people registered and signed up with us. We had 1,500 conversations, amazing, from all of our 37 owners of electric vehicles that were on site. There were about 55 volunteers, which included all those owners and also other volunteers there to do registration and setup. We had a total of 37 electric vehicles, among them battery electric or plug-in cars, 4 electric trucks, including the Rivian, Ford Lightning, and the Ford E-Transit. We had electric bikes and electric motorcycles and some fun, what would you call them, scooter style motorbikes, and of course the Unitrans electric bus. And we were really pleased to have so many different vehicle models on site, which is probably a record for the state in terms of the variety of cars that were there. We're really grateful to the exhibitors that were there with us as well. So, Yola Solano Air Quality Management District, Yolo Federal Credit Union, Valley Clean Energy, and Unitrans, all representing their organizations and helping us with critical things like rebate information and other and air quality information that are related to our mission. So we had, like I said, all of those amazing EVs, and here's some of the pictures from the event. Our e-bike section, the Unitrans bus, and there's Mayor Frericks, who came out and joined us for part of the day and did an interview, you know, celebrating the event. We had those amazing trucks on site, both the Lightning and the new e-transit bus, van, and some of those cool trucks with their cool features, as you can see in one of those pictures. So that we just think this has been a great start of the year in terms of the turnout for the different kinds of vehicles that are out there. And we're looking forward to even more fun adventures with all of our volunteers in the coming year. And to say again, the number of volunteers that were out on site, just having fun and sharing their vehicles. We so appreciate all of the work that the DEVA volunteers put into being on site and sharing what they know. And we had one of those pictures shows you our expert tables, where we had specific volunteers with their cars and a few additional people to just answer questions in more detail. And we're just really, really grateful for all of the work that DEVA and SAC EV have contributed to our ongoing transformation of our vehicle fleet in the city of Davis. And that's it.
Right. So one of the things that your slide that I really liked, and which we tried to do, was, you know, not just like the newest EVs. I mean, everybody wants to see the newest ones, right? Especially the e-trucks. I'm thinking of the Ioniq 5s, the Mustangs. That's great. But I also liked, what we wanted to do was bring out some of these, I'd say, more affordable, like the Nissan Leaf, the Chevrolet Bolt, and the Kona, the Hyundai Kona. All cars that basically started below $30,000 too, is their initial price, base price. So I liked having that out there too, especially for people who are like, we're looking for an EV, but they don't want to spend $60,000, and I don't blame them. So I'm so glad we had that opportunity to do that.
We made sure that we had people on site that were prepared to talk about buying a used EV. And we provided materials to support people in looking at used vehicles, as well as other rebate and other information on site as well. So people went home with over 150 of those Plug in America car brochures, and we have some leftovers for our next events when those come up, which includes this weekend EV pop-up at the farmers market.
Good. And actually, kind of to pile on there, is that I think it's probably one of the bigger shows in Northern California. And one of the things I'd gotten to do was I actually got to go to San Diego for the Fully Charged, which is, you know, kind of an international show that goes around. And that was about 2 weeks before our event. And I was amazed by how few cars they had at this. They had the whole San Diego Convention Center. And I kind of realized, I talked to somebody, and they had depended on dealers in the past to bring EVs out, and they're in such short supply that they had very few cars. So, you know, our event was actually a great opportunity to get out there. Two things: great opportunity to see the cars and ask questions, and for all you EV owners, it's just a great time to get out there and tell your EV stories. So good. Okay.
Thank you.
And let me get back to that slide again. If that slide wants to change. Oh, that was good. Let's try this again.
Well, I think maybe we could just go on to Jeff. presenting.
See, let's just see, this guy will go. My, I tell you, when you got the slides to go, why won't they move? There we go. That was a lot of work. Oh, Jeff, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to go if you're all ready.
Okay, thanks. Let me, I'll get off and let you put your slides up.
Great, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Flynn, and I'm the general manager at Unitrans. Unitrans is the City of Davis and university's local public transit provider in the City of Davis. So we are local service only in the city limits, and on the university campus, we do not go out of town. I'm going to give you a brief overview of just what Unitrans is, because sometimes people don't know what it is, and then jump into where we're going with our electric future. So quickly, Unitrans, like I said, is our local public transit service in the City of Davis. We're those big red buses that you see in and around town. We've been around for over 50 years, and we were founded by students, and we're still run primarily by students. Students make up all of our drivers, all of our frontline supervisors, and most of our managers. We have over 200 students supported by 20 career staff, including myself. And we are a partnership between the university and the city. Of course, I'm having problems. Well, as of right now, we're carrying about 18,000 customers a day. Our ridership is heavily university related. So 90% of our riders are UC Davis undergrads, 5% are university affiliates that are not undergrads, so grad students and staff. And then 5% are people who are unaffiliated with the university. So normal people who live in Davis, but do not have any connection with the university. Our ridership was about 22,000 a day before the pandemic, and we're gradually working our way back up to that level. So last year we carried about 2 million people. We have 48 buses across 18 routes, and we operate almost every day of the year. Right now we're operating on 30 to 60 minute frequencies, and we hope to, by the end of the year, the academic year that is, be back to 15 to 30 minute frequencies. 95% of residents in Davis are within a 10-minute walk of the Unitrans bus stop, and all undergrad housing concentrations are within a 5-minute walk of a Unitrans bus stop. So what is our fleet today? Our fleet is made up of those historic London double-deckers that are officially back in service as of last month. So we have 3 vintage London double-deckers from post-war London. We have 4 modern double-deckers, and we have over 40 single-deck buses, which are the primary core of our fleet. And now, of those 41, 6 are battery electric buses. So just a quick view of some of the buses. You can see that cool vintage one in the bottom right, the modern ones in the top left, and then the single deck fleet. And of course, here is the new electric buses. They have a slightly different look than the other buses we have. They have a kind of a subtle red wave on them. They say 0 emissions in the corner. I thought this was a neat picture showing the vintage bus next to the modern bus. So a bus from 1948 next to a bus from 2022. That's just another good pick, I thought. Okay, so what is our plan over at Unitrans supporting the city and the university's carbon reduction goals? So Unitrans is committed to only buying 0 emission vehicles as of 2022. This is 6 years before the state's going to mandate it. So we're well ahead of that, and we're well on our way. Our first 6 electric buses arrived late spring. We trained and tested them over the summer, and they were put in service as of September 15th, so just under a month ago. Our current 6 buses are made from New Flyer. New Flyer is based in Minnesota. They're one of the biggest American bus manufacturers in the country. The batteries are 525 kilowatt per hour batteries. And I'm not a technocrat, so I apologize if I'm messing up some of that lingo for all of you out there. They're rated for 225 miles. That's the design rating. In reality, what we're seeing is about 175 miles per full charge. And they're supported by 150 kilowatt chargers, which are provided by ABB. ABB is the manufacturer. We're going to get another 4 of these buses in spring 2023, and then another 4 in spring 2024. So we're calling this our phase 1 implementation. It covers about 1/3 of the fleet. And by 2024, 1/3 of the fleet will be electric with these 14 buses. They're already on order. They're already locked in pricing wise, and the infrastructure is already there to support them. And wow, a bus, you wouldn't think this, but a bus costs $1 million. So they are very expensive. Infrastructure summary, I mentioned this a little bit. We have 7 ABB chargers. Those are 150 kilowatt chargers, and each charger has 2 dispensers. So when 2 buses are plugged in at once, it's 75 and 75 kilowatts to go into each bus. The infrastructure to support these 14 buses and 14 charging stations took place from 2020 to 2021. We really capitalized on the pandemic slow period and ripped up half of our yard. We prepared for the yard for the entire future full electrification of our facility. So we did a lot of work in 2020 and 2021 to prepare for that. The chargers themselves were installed via a project that was completed over 21 and completed in February of 22. Here's just some pictures. The picture on the left, you can see kind of the line of dispensers that serve the electric buses. Again, we already have 7 chargers and 14 dispensers already set up. So we know we can support all 14 buses the second they arrive. That's another view of the dispensers on the right. And then I thought we'd show you what the plug-in looks like. And I am really not familiar with what the plugins look like for everything, but I'm told that these plugins are remarkably familiar to what you'd charge a car with. And yes, they are smart chargers. The system has a full, the ABB system is a full back end where we can control them all remotely, see their status, program when they are supposed to start, program when they're supposed to turn off. So we take advantage of the lowest pricing on electricity. So cost summary and funding. The vehicles, again, were about $1 million each, and they're still arriving. So it's $14 million in vehicles, $4.4 million in infrastructure, $1.5 million in chargers for almost a $20 million phase 1 project. This took a lot of different entities to bring this funding together. The primary funder is the Federal Transit Administration, so that's federal government. And we're only able to access these funds at Unitransit University because of our partnership with the city. So the city actually gets the money, both the formula funds that come via how many people live in the city and how many people are using the bus, and also the competitive grants that we very aggressively go after. Over $10 million that we were awarded for this was all in competitive funding for our city. We also got money through the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, which is a regional planning and funding entity for the entire Sacramento region, the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District, and UC Davis undergrads themselves. They pay a quarterly fee where a portion of that is dedicated to capital purchases like buses and infrastructure. So what's next? What's next is to get those 14 buses and get those suckers in service. And then we're already starting planning on phase 2. Phase 2 is for another 11 to 14 buses. Conceptual engineering is completed. We hope to start preliminary engineering in about a year. We estimate the infrastructure for another 11 to 14 buses will cost anywhere from $3 to $5 million. We estimate the buses will still cost $1 million or more each. And our goal is to start that project and have it ready to accept buses around mid-decade, so not very far away. This is a timeline of our transition to a full zero-emission fleet. So Unitrans has a plan that is required by the state and the federal government to transition to zero-emission buses. Over time, the state mandate is to transition by 2040. Unitrans will be well ahead of that, as you can see through this chart. So green is as we go green, as we go zero emission. And you see that we still have some red buses. Those are those vintage buses. The vintage buses are likely not going to be able to get transitioned to electric technology. They have a mostly wooden frame, and as you can imagine, batteries are heavy, and a wooden frame may not be able to support a large number of batteries. So we do think that over time we will have to revisit how we use our vintage buses, especially as they hit 100 years old in just a couple decades, and see how we transition those and what role they serve in our community. And what are future challenges? So currently, we're pursuing an all battery electric technology path, but that might change. That might change based on vehicles and how much range they get. Right now, the battery electric buses that are on the market cannot support all of our daily routes. They can support 92% of our daily routes, but not the other 8%. Battery technology, as you know, is evolving very rapidly. So we believe by 2030, the technology will be there. But if it's not, then we will have to consider alternate technology for zero emission buses. And a more pressing issue is just the power structure in the campus grid and the city grid. And can it accommodate 50 buses all charging all at once, even if it is in the middle of the night? That's a big question mark right now that we need to jump into with campus planning on is what is the future projected electricity demand on campus as the campus moves towards zero emission and more electricity, and how does Unitrans play in it as we move towards a zero emission fleet? Funding is also always a consideration. Right now, we are not all that concerned in the short term about funding, because thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, there's a lot of money available for public transit to implement electric and zero emission technology. So we know in the short term that we think that we have the funding support to implement phase 1, of course, because that's already funded. We think that phase 2 will likely have pretty secure funding if we can get started on it by the mid-decade mark. And with that, that's the presentation. I do see a question from Katrina. Do you pay PG&E or are you, yeah, so we just pay the campus utility department. So we do not have a relationship with PG&E. We work with campus directly as our primary provider of power, and PG&E is the secondary to that. The campus has its extensive investment in solar technology and a solar farm that Unitrans does take advantage of. Unitrans is part of the university, so you can think of us as just a department of UC Davis. So we got all the benefits that UC Davis has to offer because we are a department of UC Davis. The hand was raised for Barbara and for Robert, so I'll take their question first and then go to Richard in the chat.
What's that?
Sorry, it took me a while to unmute myself. So the buses are expensive to buy, $1 million a pop. I was curious, what does a standard diesel bus cost? And how do costs of operation and maintenance compare between the two?
Yeah, and fuel.
And yeah, operation meaning fuel and maintenance.
Yeah, so those are some complex questions that we don't have a lot of the answers for. So I can give you like what the studies show and what the real life experience is showing too. So the cost of a diesel bus, I don't know off the top of my head because we have not been on a diesel fuel path since the 90s. So for CNG or compressed natural gas buses, they cost about $700,000. I believe that diesel buses are slightly cheaper, but still in the range of $600,000 to $700,000 a year. Through the state, there is about a $150,000 credit that we get, which brings them a little bit closer to the cost of a compressed natural gas bus. So you take $1 million, subtract out 150, you're at 850. 850 is kind of halfway closer to $700,000 that you need to make up as the difference. Now, the studies suggest that you should see lower operating costs and maintenance costs or the same as the compressed natural gases buses that we have. In reality, what peers are seeing is that they are comparable or a little bit more, as there's the technology learning curve. You need to at least temporarily staff up, change the way that you have your parts inventory and buy up a lot of different things. This technology is still very new, so everyone's still trying to wrap their heads around what the actual cost will end up being. There are a lot fewer movable parts, though, as you likely know through being part of this group. So we do think that the cost shouldn't be any higher than a CNG bus. The power question versus the fuel question is an interesting one. So campus just assesses us a fee, and we don't have much say over that based on the utility rates that they assess. So we believe that the utility rates that we're going to get assessed are likely going to be comparable to fuel costs. However, we have access to low carbon fuel credits, which may further offset that cost. So I'd say we don't really know what the fuel costs are going to end up being at the end of the day. We think that they may be similar to what our fuel costs were 2 years ago, when CNG was much cheaper than it is today. CNG right now has more than tripled in cost over the last 2 years.
Wow.
And the credit value has also declined for CNG. So we're hoping to see that the costs for the energy are either going to be closer to what we were paying for fuel 2 years ago or less, but we haven't really jumped into that reality yet, as we've only been running these buses for under 30 days.
Okay, thank you. That was a wonderful explanation.
Let's see, we have Richard in the chat. The electric buses will be very heavy. What impact to our roads? So the electric buses weigh about 44,000 pounds, and they only have one axle. Or sorry, they have two axles, not three axles, not just one axle, of course. So they are a lot heavier than the compressed natural gas buses, but they're a lot lighter than the double-decker buses. So the double-decker buses are three axle, and they're much heavier. So we do talk to the city's public works departments quite a bit about this and pavement rehabilitation, and where with the university and the city, we need to work together to make sure that high transit corridors get bus stops that have a better paving base or a concrete base, things like that. So we work together and help fund those projects. Unitrans, like I said, is a funding partnership between the city and university. The city gets a lot of funds for transportation and transit specifically, and that money, we decide jointly how to use that to support city infrastructure and the public transit network. I think Richard had another question. Could you add solar panels to assist with charging? So the university leads that effort, and the university is investing heavily in solar. They do have a solar farm. We will be seeing, as we roll out more charging stations and need to electrify our entire yard, we are looking at overhead gantry systems for charging, which would include solar panels on top. So the university and us are looking at solutions that would help provide solar infrastructure at our facility to help charge the entire campus grid, not just Unitrans. Any other questions or comments or anything out there?
Jeff, so Jeff, this is Richard Boat. The only thing I'd add to it was I think this sounds really great what the universe is doing, though the costs surprised me too. But not that I shouldn't have known better, but it's quite a bit of an investment. It's not like something like I can go down there and buy $100,000 bus and put it on the road and then plug it into my 240 and I'm off. But it sounds like it's a big investment. So.
Yeah, it is shocking how much buses cost. I mean, you don't think that they're going to be the cost of a very nice home, right? But they are a 14-year investment, so they're built to last a very long time. And we all transit providers try to maintain and keep those buses running for as long as possible. So they're not short-term investments; they are long-term community investments.
Right.
Jeff, I think we had another question from Rich Casillas. And also I was hoping you would speak to the value of planning, because I know how much planning has gone into making this happen. And it looks like you're on schedule to meet a goal by in the 2030s, which is a great thing for all of our climate goals. So Rich's question is there any collaboration with the YOLO bus EV efforts, and that he's enjoyed riding the Causeway cruiser?
Yeah, so we coordinate extensively with YOLO Bus, YCTD, and SAC-RT on vehicles and performance and technologies. You'll see that across our little teeny area of Yolo County and Sacramento, we have all three major electric bus manufacturers all in the area. So we have Proterra, which is the Causeway connection, which is jointly operated by YOLO Bus and SAC-RT. You have Unitrans with New Flyers. And then you have also SAC-RT, they have Gillig electric buses. So we're all information sharing on our experiences with these three types of vehicles. Those really are the three biggies in the air in the country with electric bus technology. Are we doing more coordination besides that right now? Besides information sharing, not really at this point.
Yeah, I was wondering, because if there's a way to well, information sharing, but also, grant sharing or collaborating in a way that shows, in our region, the SACOG region, there may be an initiative to use all of our brain trusts in the area to really expand the electrification into rural communities too.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Unitrans is a small department at the university. The university is one of the partners in the SAC-RT YOLO Bus, trifecta of the Causeway connection. So there is a lot of planning and organization and coordination that goes into that service, because the three of us all coordinate on that. I'm actually not involved in the Causeway connection because that's really handled by a different department at the university. I would say that, on Chris's point, I think that a lot of this is driven by state mandates, and a lot of places are still catching up. So Unitrans has the great community that we have of the city and university being so supportive of climate goals and zero emission technology. And also Davis is a small footprint. So for us, it really made no sense to not go this way sooner than later. With all the partnership and the drive and the interest in doing this, and that we don't go very far, we're in a very small geographical area. The technology can already support 92% of our routes. So why are we not doing this was the question for us. So 4 years ago was like, again, why are we not doing this? We should be doing this now. But it takes a lot of planning. You got to get the plans together, get the costs together, find the money. Finding $20 million is not easy, right? And then make it happen. Then you got to bid out projects, do all that stuff. So it really did take a lot of planning to get to where we're going. I'll say Unitrans is a bit ahead of the curve. We are one of very few places that is saying we're not going to buy a fossil fuel bus again. And we're one of the very few places that has all these plans already moving and going to get us there fast. A lot of places are waiting for state mandates to kick into effect. That is my general commentary and criticism of the public transit industry.
So
thank you. And it was a great presentation. Thank you. I'll mute out.
Okay.
So
If we don't have any more. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. So I'd just like to add that there is what Jeff was just saying is that he got to and Unitrans got to build on the great bones of collaboration and of goal setting around a sustainable community, because we're dense and small footprint because of decisions that have been made in the past. The framework upon which we're building right now is based on those decision makers from the past who decided to partner with Unitrans in the 1970s. So all of that is about how we have important decisions to make now for our future. And, now is the time. So thanks, Jeff, for your presentation. It's awesome. And it's so fun to see those goals moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Right. So our next speaker is going to be Robert Thayer. Robert, we were a little worried you weren't showing up. I will, instead of putting my slide up, let you just grab the screen. And you, Robert, you said you're going to use web pages and show that and what's going on. So I'll introduce it just by letting everybody know Robert's at Davis High School, and we're really glad to hear the last time we had a DEVA meeting that Davis High School has already started working on electric vehicle programs. So Robert, take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry I was late. I was at a CPR training for district staff. Basically, in order to take kids on field trips, you have to have CPR, but it's a lot more than that. It's basically like, just like sort of medical emergencies. I mean, allergic reactions, bleeding, it's everything. AED, it's the whole deal. So I apologize for that. It's required. I am taking my students on a field trip to Ron Duprat Ford on October 27th, but that's another deal. So thank you for having me. I'm really happy about this organization, really excited about this organization. I've been familiar with DEVA for a while, or how you pronounce it, DEVA. And I've been the auto shop teacher at Davis High School since 2006. So long time. And program is doing really well. We're fully enrolled, we're fully funded, we're getting a lot of grant funding. And we have 3 classes that are offered right now, 3 year-long classes. One is called Basic Auto, which is basically like Auto 101 or Auto 1. And then we have a class called Electric Vehicle Technology and Build. Excuse me, getting over a cold. And that's another year-long class. And then we have Advanced Auto, which is sort of like Auto 2. And students can take either basic or EV tech is a prerequisite for advanced. We've talked about kind of restructuring the course sequences and the course sort of names for a while, but right now we have basic auto, EV tech, and then advanced, and they're year-long classes. The EV tech class we developed about 3 years ago. The first year that it ran, or the first year was available, it didn't fill. The year after that was a pandemic year and everyone was on school online. Last year was the first year that EV Tech actually ran and that I taught it. And it's intimidating for me because, I got started in cars before the electric vehicle revolution. I was a mechanic in the 90s and 2000s. I worked on Saabs and a few other kinds of vehicles. But I've been pretty much all in on electric vehicles going back about 10 years. But running a CTE program, so CTE stands for Career Technical Education, which is a whole other branch of education as far as the California Department of Education is concerned. And so CTE programs and pathways are like agriculture education, health sciences, digital arts and media, journalism. And then my pathway is called transportation, because the CDE considers automotive service and repair as all part of this transportation umbrella, which actually includes aviation, and it includes logistics as well. So that's all your delivery systems for, like Amazon warehouses, Target warehouses, all that kind of stuff. That's all considered transportation. And so, for the CDE, it's all under that umbrella. So my little corner is automotive service and repair in the transportation pathway, and I have the EV Tech class as sort of like the the overlap of the Venn diagram with this group here with DEVA. And so I thought I'd start with what really got the ball rolling for us with electric vehicle technology education was when we applied for a grant that was offered by the California Energy Commission, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. So we heard about the grant, and I actually heard about it from some of my community college colleagues over at American River College. They have an auto tech education program at ARC. And they said, hey, there's this program, there's this grant. And so we said, sure, we applied for it. And basically the grant was to get us started with a kit, a 3-wheeled electric vehicle that is basically kind of built and designed in Sebastopol by this company called the Switch Lab. And this the California Energy Commission partners with the Switch Lab, and then also Advanced Transportation Logistics, ATL. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. And then also out of the Solano, YOLO, air quality district, and then also the Solano Community College District. All these, entities linked up, and we applied, and we received we were awarded the grant. And so I wanted to share with you just this video, which will do a couple things. One, it'll show you our shop space. It'll show you some of our students, and it'll show you the Energy Commission giving us the award. So you'll know that we're kind of like, we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. So do I have screen share capability?
It's at the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
Just make sure you click on the video as well as the
Got it.
that you're sharing video and sound.
Okay, let's try this. Can you guys see that that image there?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's not what I wanted to share. So let me trick you, fooled you. Gotcha. Okay, and here, okay, I'm getting it, and it's happening. I did teach on Zoom for a long time. So this is it right here. So this was in 2019. Okay, can you guys see this now?
Yes. Good.
And let's do a test.
It's
There's no
moving.
sound yet. No sound
Yeah.
yet. Wait for it. Can you hear sound?
No.
No.
Okay. So what do I have to do there?
So when you go, when you do the share screen, before you click on the actual item that you're selecting, there's also below that some options, little click boxes, and one of them says something about video sharing and sound sharing.
Got it.
Do that
Okay.
too.
Share sound. Yep.
Share
And
sound.
optimize for got it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And take 2. And play. You guys got sound?
We do.
Yep. Yeah, we
Okay,
do.
excellent.
I want to welcome our guest today. My name is Robert Thayer. I'm the auto shop teacher here at
Is that loud enough?
That's
Right.
just fine.
Okay.
Davis High School. These are our advanced auto students. Because this is a pilot program, when I made this opportunity known to the class, there was a few students that really stepped up and raised their hands. So I'd like to call them over here. EV, that's their team name. We really value this piece of equipment here. We want to see it here for many, many, many years to come. We are stewards of this equipment for future generations, maybe overstating a little bit, but I'd say for the next 20, 25 years at this program. One of the things, when I went to the training for this vehicle with the founder, he said something I thought that really stuck with me, which is that when somebody knows how to take something apart and put it back together and see it run, they really develop a love affair with it, a relationship with it, that doesn't necessarily come from just sort of watching something and looking at it. Peter Oliver, the founder and creator of this company, coined this term called the EV grin. And it's when you're done building this and you can actually turn key and either you or somebody gets in it, you know, and steps on that accelerator and it's perfectly quiet and it really takes off. There's just this grin that just appears on people's faces. And so that's the kind of excitement, enthusiasm that I think these guys are kind of getting excited about.
This is to the Davis Senior High School Clean Fuels Transportation Pilot Project, and it's presented to you by the California Energy Commission, Advanced Transportation and Logistics Sector, California Community Colleges, and we're just so delighted and excited to have all of you students working on electric vehicles. I really think it's going to be part of the future. There's 550,000 of them in California right now, and that number's just going to keep growing. So you guys are the future. You're out ahead of the game. You're going to know how to work on these. You're going to know how to charge them up. You're going to know all of the different components. And they're in buses, they're in delivery trucks, right? So they're going to be in all kinds of different types of vehicles. And again, you guys are leading the way. And I want to thank Mr. Thayer for bringing this into your classroom, and also Principal McHale for supporting him in doing that. And all of you guys for your enthusiasm and working on it. I can't wait to see your EV grin. So congratulations. Thanks so much.
So that was in 2019. So the car is designed as a piece of curriculum and a instructional tool. And the Switch Lab gives a lot of support. So I went to a training for a week in 2018 to basically build the car. And it's basically found throughout California, actually the whole United States. They're national, and they're even international. They'll basically ship you one of these kits, and it's the one that we have is a 72 volt AGM DC. It's 3-wheel so that it doesn't have to meet all the same DOT requirements that a 4-wheel vehicle would have to meet. Otherwise, it would be 4-wheel. And it's designed to be built and taken apart and built and taken apart over and over and over again by a group of students. And we're getting another one. Actually, I got an email in my inbox. So we received another grant fund recently that you may have heard about. It's this massive CTE grant fund that the district applied for like 2 or 3 years ago, and we got. And it's providing the brand new robotics facility that's being built on DHS campus. It's also paying for massive improvements and upgrades to the ag education facilities that are on our campus at DHS, and then a huge upgrade and expansion of the auto tech program at DHS. And what we decided to do with the grant proposal was to build a separate wing of the auto shop facility at DHS that's just for EV. Okay, so this is going to be a clean room, you know, no oil changes, no transmission fluid changes. We're having 2 30-amp fast chargers installed over there. And our whole EV program is going to be focused on this brand new room that we have. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. If you go to the, I mean, I'm not going to take you there right now, but if you go to the district website, you know, they've got all the different projects highlighted. Excuse me. And it's going to be a beautiful new space. And we're going to have our whole EV tech program centered in that room. It's a big room. It's got 2 big lifts. And we're going to have both Switch vehicles there. Our original one, which is now kind of old, but it's still cool and it still works. And I'll show you some pictures of it in a minute. And then we're getting another one now, and these things aren't cheap. Okay, they're 45 grand. They're handmade and hand created over there in Sebastopol. And I mentioned the founder, whose name's Peter Oliver. If you get a chance to meet him one day, he's really worth meeting. He basically retired from some business, some industry, some career, I don't know what it was, and said, you know what, I want to make an electric vehicle kit that people can get really excited about, that schools and students can use to teach the new generation about electric vehicle technology. And so he created this business out of whole cloth. And when the fires ripped through there, went right through Santa Rosa and all that, it was horrible. And they had to shut down. And so I mean, they're real survivors, these folks. And so the new one that we're getting is, can you guys hold on for 1 second, please? My son just got home from swimming, so hold on.
Gotta make sure the kid came in. So Robert said something there that hit me was, you know how to take something apart and put it back together, you really learn something. And
Sorry about that.
Good. Go ahead, Robert.
So the next one that we're getting is it's 96 volt. It's not AGM batteries, it's lithium ion, and it's AC. So that means braking. So we're going to have, like, kind of the Model T of the Switch vehicle and then the Model A of the Switch vehicle. And it's a really big deal. It requires a lot of care and training and space and funding. We get a lot of curriculum for that. There's another training workshop for the new vehicle. Has a lot of new technology on it. Battery balancing, for 96 lithium ion vehicles, there's a lot of safety involved. So that's kind of the overview of our electric vehicle program. We're very proud of it. And so, I could go on about, I could go deeper and probably wider, but I think I'll probably conclude there.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Do you have any questions for Robert? Right. So just before you broke there, I was going to say the one thing you said was, if you know how to take something apart and put it back together, then it really teaches you how to learn stuff. And I could agree with that. By example, I had a motorcycle when I was in high school. Somebody told me you got to clean the carburetor. So I took that whole engine apart, all these pieces, and I went, oh, what the heck have I done? Put it back. I was done with it, and I had 2 pieces left. So I take it all apart again. Second time, I finally got together. But yeah,
the whole idea that about what he was saying there. Well, you know what, he actually mentioned this historical story that was kind of the idea of his company, where he talked about the back in the like 1890s or something. There was a company owner that was trying to sell new powered agriculture equipment, tractors, plows, to a bunch of farmers that were using horses or maybe using an earlier generation of equipment. And this guy discovered that if he gave them kits, not ask them to buy completed machines, but gave them kits that they could build themselves, that they would A, be able to learn, they would know how to fix it when it broke, and B, that they would get more excited about the technology, because people are pretty suspicious of new technology. Well, what, they just kind of are a little skeptical, right? So that's why he created the kit. So there you go. Yeah.
So I think Barbara and Robert, did you have a question?
Yeah, nice presentation. I went to Davis High School, and I was going there a bit before your time in the mid-60s. And at that time, every guy that I knew wanted a car and was in love with the idea that something that made a lot of noise and looked really macho. What do young people think today about the advantages of the electric car compared to something that makes a lot of noise?
It's a great question. So short answer, that attitude still exists and it's still, out there. But, this is a very different generation. I mean, so many young people, first of all, they get driven everywhere. And a lot of them aren't that motivated to get their licenses, to be honest with you. License, applications are down. A lot of, cars also to a certain extent have become disposable. People open the hoods and, the way people, there's less older generations that are teaching kids about, there are less, grandparents and parents that are getting out there and wrenching on their cars with kids. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I point out over and over and over again, is that the quarter mile and the 0 to 60 is completely owned by electric vehicles now. And so when a lot of old time and even younger, muscle car, loud exhaust, smoke, all that, they're kind of hiding from this news a little bit or ignoring it, like willfully ignoring it. But that's not going to last too much longer. The one thing I'll say is that, in racing, so quarter mile and 0 to 60, it's not even a competition anymore, and I don't know if you guys have seen the white zombie video that made the rounds a while ago, where these engineers took a 72 Datsun and basically made it into an electric rocket. Have you guys seen that video? You guys should really. So next time you have a chance, Google white zombie electric car, and you'll just be blown away. You'll be blown away. That's what they call it the white zombie, because it happens to be white, and zombie just because it sounds cool. But it's one of the fastest cars in the world because it's such a light chassis. It's so light. It's a tiny little 72 or 74 Datsun, but it has a massive, massive lithium ion battery pack and a massive electric motor. And it does like 0 to 60. And I want to say like 1.6 seconds. It's something like that. And you really actually have to be careful of the G forces. Like you actually really have to be like ready for it, because like your vision will blur, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, should I show that to my students? And there is a movement afoot to actually electrify all the big old American steel. There's a company in Austin, Texas that it's not cheap, but they will take your 60s Mustang, your 60s Camaro, your Corvette, and they will electrify it. And they're completely booked for like years out, Also Tesla, Elon Musk really, he did do one amazing thing. And that was, he really did change the landscape by basically making a cool car, a lot of people say sexy car that's electric. And so a lot of these young kids, maybe not the current, say 18 to 24-year-olds, but the 10 to 18-year-olds, they think that Tesla is the coolest car in the world. And that is a real change. That is a real change. And a lot of it, to be honest with you, and this is a little sad, is because of the status and how much they cost. And that's unfortunate, because a lot of people that are like, well, that's a rich person's car, and they're not rich. They don't come from a rich background, to kind of use some crude terminology. But, you guys know that electric vehicles are advancing in the market faster than really anybody thought. So just a long way to answer your question. That kind of loud, smoky, rumbly, crowd is still out there. but they are shrinking in number, and it's only a matter of time before, you know, they're really drowned out by, you know, the people that are into electric.
Oh, that's great. Whatever makes electric cars cool is okay with me. And I'm glad to hear they're getting cool among younger people.
So I think we had two.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat from Kevin about so he noticed that
Okay. Phyllis also has got her hand up too. So.
right. He asked about, he was in his own automotive class years ago. There weren't many girls, and it doesn't look like there are many girls present, at least in the pictures you were showing. And is it, you know, how do we make that change and to a more diverse group? Because this is going to be critical in our new electrified automotive age.
You know, that's the $64,000 question. I think a female instructor would really help. And in order for there to be a female instructor, I mean, it's sort of like there needs to be a tipping point, you know. You know, it's completely, you know, it seems completely out of the realm of possibility until it suddenly happens, you know. I think, well, I would just tell you this, is that you guys need to know that that automotive technology programs at the high school level in California are on the decline.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, you know, it's not just that there aren't enough, you know, girls, you know, and young women either teaching or taking these classes. These programs have shrunk in number and in size from, you know, 2 generations ago to just like they're almost like unicorns now, or like a missing link. Like when scientists find some species that, you know, they thought was extinct, you know. I mean, I'm serious. Like people, like you don't know how many people in Davis have no idea that there is an auto tech program at our comprehensive high school. They're like, they stumble upon our shop and they're like, I didn't know this existed. I've lived in Davis for, you know, I went to Davis High. You know, people go through Davis High. They think that our shop is like an M&O maintenance facility. They think that I'm a custodian. I'm not, I mean, I know it sounds funny, but they're like, I just thought that you were like some funky custodian. And they're like, I thought that it was like janitors and maintenance workers working on, you know, the district's vehicles. So there really needs to be a sea change in the Davis community where, and you guys could really be the major, you know, loudspeakers for it. Because to be honest with you, in Davis for years and years and years, you know, the attitude is, you know, well, going into the trades is just not a great career move. Go to university and, you know, forget about the trades, forget about construction, forget about being a plumber, an electrician, a car mechanic, forget about all that. Your grandparents didn't make the journey over here from wherever they came for you to be a car mechanic, or for you to be a plumber. And so, we've had to deal with that, that kind of, challenge. Never mind, getting, we had trouble for years just getting, young men and boys to take the classes because their parents were, either telling them don't do that or you can do better, So that needs to change. And it doesn't mean that if you take an auto shop class, it means that, you're going to be a mechanic. It just means that you're curious, right? I mean, can we all agree on that, right? And so, why shouldn't young girls be just as curious as young boys? Now, I work very hard to make sure that there is not a chauvinistic or toxic male environment in my classes. I have a zero tolerance for it, zero tolerance. But I'll tell you, young men and young women, they're just not used to actually getting dirty, and touching screws and nuts and bolts and wires. They're such a clean generation, so clean. So, that's just a challenge across genders, so you guys can really help out by just letting everyone that you can still get a PhD in physics, and you can still and that you'd actually be better. You'd be a better PhD physicist if you actually took an auto shop class. And you guys all know what I'm talking about, but a lot of people don't, and that needs to change.
Thanks, Rob. I think Phyllis and Cyril, you had a question?
Yeah, just a comment, and he has a question. But I wanted to go back to about the younger kids and the electric cars, because our grandkids and the all the kids that come around, we are absolutely in love with electric cars. It is the coolest, most wonderful thing, and they all want them. And so that's just, I just had to make that comment. And he has a question.
My question goes to the maintenance and working on electric vehicles versus the old internal combustion engines. I've rebuilt engines. I worked on cars. I'm 74 years old, so I worked on cars going way back to when I was a teenager. And we've had a Model S now for almost 10 years. And they've replaced the 12-volt battery a couple of times, and a module buried in the dashboard. And one of the things I noticed is the Teslas anyway, they're put together like a Chinese puzzle. You've got to know where the little latches are to open the dashboard to get to some of this stuff. And as far as the battery packs underneath, I have no idea, but it seems like it's a totally different landscape for, I wouldn't even call them mechanics, because there's more electronics in these things than there are mechanical features. How do you deal with that? And what's your plan?
Well, I mean, basically, like I'm saying, we're lucky because we don't have to sort of like start with a Tesla. Basically, we start with this 3-wheeled electric build-it-yourself kit car. So, it's got a battery pack. It's got a motor. It's got a battery management system, or BMS. So the kids basically are building something that's a simplified version of a Tesla, but still has all the same major components. And so we're not really teaching them how to work on a Tesla, but we're teaching them how a Tesla works, and in terms of like a full production car, it's true. I mean, interiors are still interiors. And then of course the brakes, the tires, largely, a lot of those the same. So we're starting with this, we're starting to basically just get them excited and get them out of their seats and get them actually lifting things and putting them in place and bolting them and connecting all the wires. And so we don't, like whether they'll ever be able to, work on a Tesla, they're going to have a much better chance if they actually know how to work on one of these switch electric vehicles. So that's our hope, and that's our plan.
All right.
Yeah, what are the junior colleges doing in terms of putting programs together for electric vehicle mechanics?
So the one that I know about the most is ARC, and I know a lot of those teachers over there. I've taken the classes over there, and they have electric vehicle classes. They have one that's kind of beginning, and then another one that's kind of advanced. The problem is that they're upper level classes, and there's such a there's such a labor shortage that what ends up happening is they'll get some students taking their beginning classes, and then they'll find out that it's so easy to get a job, even with very little knowledge, because there's so few employees that these dealerships and these shops, can hire, that they end up not taking the upper level classes, and they basically just do on the job education.
Oh, okay.
And it's really difficult, so they get tons of kids, tons of students coming into the beginning classes, and then by the time, so those are packed and full and waiting lists, but the upper level classes, now they could do a beginning, electric class. The thing is that you need to teach them basic electronics. You also need to teach them alignment. You need to teach them brakes. You need to teach them tires. They're hanging in there. They're getting grant funding too, and they're building new facilities and changing things. And yeah, high voltage safety for sure. So they're doing okay, but this is a crazy time to be in automotive education. I have to tell you, it's a crazy time to be in education, period. In K-12, it's politically, in terms of, all the challenges that schools are facing right now between, pandemics, and it's nuts. I mean, the community colleges are actually, the enrollment was so down for so long because people, actually, this is what's happening, is that so many community college students, they don't want to come to school. They want to take everything online.
Wow.
Because they got used to that.
Sure.
Or the job market is so good right now that you don't have to have any education to get a job and even get promoted. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have a Hyundai Kona EV, and I'm a member of several different groups that are Hyundai owners, Kona owners, and there's a lot of dealerships out there that don't have full-time EV mechanics.
That's right.
That are on hand, so they can't really. It sounds like a lot of these people go to the dealership, and the dealership doesn't know exactly what to do.
No,
so
it's
terrible.
The salespeople don't know how the cars work. They don't know the features. They can't answer the questions.
Right.
We're in uncharted waters here right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Rob, we've gotten to the 7:30 time slot here. Richard, I don't know if we're going to take some more questions. I would really like to hear from you about how can we help you? Because there are so many. I'm looking at Katrina. She can't see me looking at her, but what an amazing mind of a young woman working in this field. And there are many more that you could bring into your classroom, I think, in terms of like guest speaking and talking about and I'm sure over at the university as well. There's also many other people who how are you doing for resources? I'm one of those magical musical parents and I know how things in other parts of the school don't get the same kind of resources and assistance from parental groups. And so I'm wondering how you're doing for resources and support in terms of technical experts and different aspects of the industry.
Well, for the Switch, we get a lot of technical support. There's a community of Switch teachers that support each other. I mean, I think, having a guest speaker come in. Katrina, are you the one that went to Europe and went to that car show in Europe, or that was somebody else? At your last meeting?
Oh, that was me. I went to.
Oh, that was you. Yeah. I saw your whole thing. That was really awesome. I think that having someone like you come in and just do, a presentation, show your excitement and your enthusiasm and share your knowledge. I mean, you seem to have a really, really, pretty broad and deep knowledge of the vehicles, the technology. Maybe even bring in a vehicle, but maybe just, having a person such as yourself come in and speak and just talk about opportunities. I mean, I don't know what you do for a living, but just talk about, just share your excitement and your enthusiasm would be pretty awesome, especially with our car club. I mean, most young people just kind of sit there and don't say anything because they're at an age where they are afraid of sort of like sticking out, And so you can't expect, the same kind of like rat-a-tat-tat rapport that you might have with an adult, but it goes in, and it definitely has an impact, even though you don't see that impact, but it goes in. So I would love to have you come and speak.
Yeah, happy to try to help. I live in West Sac. In the transit sector for not on like mechanical fascinating security.
Katrina, your audio is going out.
Yeah, sorry. I've lost my headphones. Yeah, happy to talk. I'm in the sector, not quite as hands-on. Definitely very exciting.
Okay, well, put your email address in the chat right now, and I'll send you an email right now, just so that we have that connection and that thread, and then we'll see if we can figure something out. And I'm happy to come back and share more but it's an enormous subject, and we're all right here in Davis, so.
Yeah. I'm sure your students would like to get a look at those Unitrans buses too.
Yeah, that's right.
And Jeff is his organization is a student-run organization. And so that peer-to-peer kind of learning that can go on between college students and high school students. So we're glad to connect you with him too.
Let me tell you this. So one way that we can really benefit from Unitrans is with internships, student internships. And we have a great internship framework that we use called the Harbor Freight Fellows internship. And we're always looking for new internship hosts. So, shoot, I don't know. I mean, it all takes work, it's just kind of, that's another way, is that, places that will mentor kids, that kids can get to, that are, that they can get to on their bike and stuff like that. That's another way. But I think you guys are kind of wrapping up, I guess, and it's been a long day for me too, but I'm happy to come back and just sit in on a meeting. I actually try to go to all the meetings that I can make it to. Yeah.
Robert, I'd say to save the chat. We've got a chance here. There's a little button, save the chat, and you can get Katrina's email and Ash's email and some of these links that Katrina put up, and they're right in there.
Right.
So,
yeah, totally.
yeah.
It's a great idea. Katrina May Sutton at Gmail. Okay, got it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you could make it. I'm glad.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I was late. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we have another EV show, we're inviting you there as part of the medical crew. So.
I know. I wanted to go to the one that was at the Central Park, but I had another commitment. I have young kids, and so yeah, I really wanted to make that.
I know, Rob, in the past, we've tried to connect with you too for the kids, the car show on campus.
Yeah.
And, that's usually in the spring. And so if that is something you'd like some support for, and especially if you want to have some additional, or, we apparently know where all the cool vehicles are. So finding some vehicles that you'd like to feature or to support that, that'd be something else we might be able to do. So. Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. I don't know. We're doing these like smaller, more informal shows. They're called, basically there's a kind of a new trend that's called Cars and Coffee, where you just put it on social media and anybody can show up in a parking lot. But if we have a big show, of course, we'll definitely ask you to join.
And then if we have a Cars and Coffee, I'll try to email you guys and you could just put it on in your mailer, and then anybody can show up. I mean, I just bought a 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5. I just got it. It's got like 750 miles on it. So I'll probably be bringing that to the show, and
All right,
And-
you're on our email list for next year.
And
Yeah.
I think the high school, your EV and the high school crew could be one of the groups that we feature at our farmers market EV pop-up as well. That might be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah. How often do you do that?
It's the third Saturday of the month. We do electric vehicle pop-up. And so we would
Okay.
just schedule you for one of the months coming up this year.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I would definitely try to do that.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, we're running a little late. Anybody got any questions they want to ask on anything related to EVs? We can ask our people online. And I will tell you, I did get a question beforehand by someone called Nancy. I won't give her last name, but doesn't seem like she was gonna. I told her to come to the meeting. She wanted to know about Nissan Leafs. So I think I'm gonna find people in my list of Leaf owners, and want to know whether it was a good car to buy, a 2019 Nissan Leaf. So anyway.
And Rich had a question for me, which I'll stay on the line after we're done to answer, Rich, if that works for you.
Yeah, and Rich, I can send you the chat log if you want. I saved it. So
It does, Chris.
okay.
And Cyril and Phyllis, did you have another question or?
Yes, I do. We're not actually in Davis, but we participated in your Drive Electric stuff going all the way back when you first started. And you guys are much more advanced, let's say, than here we are in Lincoln. We can't get them to let go of their horse and buggies up in this part of the woods. But in Davis, have you guys instituted any kind of program to motivate your local government folks to tackling the private, street chargers at apartment buildings? If we're going to go all electric by 2030 in California, we're going to need a lot more chargers in places other than single family residents. Not everybody owns a home, and there's got to be other places to charge.
So there's
other than Tesla.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things. I mean, we're really lucky to have a city that has been sustainability oriented for a long time, had some of the first electric vehicle charging installed in for free in front of its government buildings and around town. But as a small town, we also struggle in terms of budgets and resources. And so Davis has some funding right now to install some more especially fast chargers and more level 2 charging around the community. So we're going to see that rolling out in the next year or so. But continually, it is a question of money. But I think also it's also getting ready, right? Having a plan, having an understanding of what is needed and where it's needed. So when the public funds are available, or especially with the money that's coming from the federal government through the both the transportation bills that went through last year, and then now as we look forward into the Inflation Reduction Act, there's more money coming for electric vehicles and electric vehicle infrastructure. And so the problem is that your cities need to be ready. They need to be ready with their plans. And I think the angle is, do you want to miss out? Do you want to be not ready to get your share? And then I think the business community is a lot more connected to the sort of future and technology, and getting some business leaders to speak up and be present and to challenge the political leaders to get busy with this is really important. And then I also want to say is that SACOG as a regional entity is helping with the planning and with many of our counties and cities in the region. And there may be some things that are happening that you're not aware of. So if you're going to go to the public sector and ask people and challenge them, go find out what they're doing already and what the plan is, because there's a lot of money coming, and most communities want to at least get their share of those funds. And then finally, a lot of our infrastructure right now is rolling out with partnerships as well between the businesses. Like in our own town in Davis, we have a Bank of America parking lot that is full of level 3 fast chargers. They just magically appeared because of a partnership between a provider of chargers partnering with the Bank of America all over our state. And so it's also important to see who in the business community might be connecting that way, and make sure that some of that thing that is being planned in other places gets into your community.
So Earl, I just added that to you. On the state level, the California Energy Commission is put in charge of the primary agency to look at infrastructure and charging infrastructure. So they've been working several years on it. They're the guys who are going to be doing a lot of the funneling of funding down to the local governments. And then there's another group called, it's the Housing and Community Development. And I can't remember, it's a part of what agency, but it's spent the last year and a half working on building standards for condos and apartments. And right now, they've already done for private homes. The standards are private homes. All private homes now have to have at least conduit and a way of putting an EV charger in a house. But there's a lot of work done on making sure that apartments and condos, we've got these multifamily dwellings that they're ready for it. And the problem with that is you got the standards have to come out now, but the best part to do it is when you're building these places. So it's the lowest cost. So there is quite a bit of movement on that, but it's going to take a little time.
But we have a lot of our multifamily housing property managers will tell us, and we are finding ways to try and support them, that they're being approached by business interests who want to place chargers in their facilities, and that will come in and get it done because they see that their residents are potential customers. And so there is a business case, a business market starting to grow for the whole charging infrastructure. And one of the things we have to do is provide enough support to the people making decisions. So first of all, they make good decisions, and those chargers are coming in and that electricity for those cars is coming in at a reasonable cost, and that we're putting in good systems for the future as well. Katrina, I think you have some wisdom to share.
Yeah. Hey guys, sorry, I switched to my headphones, so maybe I'm a little bit easier to hear. But kind of on that vein of, kind of looking at trying to get the city to kind of buy in. I have friends in Lincoln, and I agree, Lincoln's a little bit funny, to say it nicely, but it's there's actually, so this link I just dropped in the chat is this new program that the company I work for is starting up with the state. It's actually a light duty vehicle charging incentive program, which is a lot of words to say, trying to give out money for charging it, at city locations as well as at like community hubs, for example, including churches, which I hear Lincoln has a lot of, and kind of other places where people gather and not necessarily spend money to, access charging, which I feel like is where a lot of charging is at right now. And there's actually a a public facing workshop that's coming up next week. Actually, I can put the Zoom link in the chat if y'all are interested. Trying to get public like acknowledgement and kind of to hear from feedback from about this program, and I think it'll be really cool. But kind of just in that vein of getting more charging out in the world, I thought I would let y'all know.
Good. All right. Any other questions or comments? And Cyril and Phyllis, glad you could join us from Lincoln. That's great. Okay. Actually, maybe we should spread our DEVA list out and start hitting other cities with it. SAC-UV's got their own vote. Okay. No other questions? Going, gone. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we will take the recording. We'll turn the recording off after we shut down, and then we will post this to the Cool Davis website.
No, to YouTube, to
That's
our
right, to
YouTube. And remember that all of the past DEVA